officially, I am delighted to welcome you to this second webinar with Korea University's School of Cybersecurity. So it's a pleasure. And I would like to talk in Korean. My husband is not there. It's too bad. He's able.
Professor Gams just joined us.
Yes, bonjour.
Yes, another Sebastian in Paris.
Oh, we lost him. He just went away.
Okay. No,
I can see him. He's there.
I'm here. So.
Yes, like I said, I'm very delighted to welcome you. So tonight we have our guest, Korean guest, and I'm very proud to have you tonight. And also from the Cybersecurity and Social Impacts Hub at OBVIA, where are some of the panelists and professors that I respect a lot. I will let Sebastian, our hub coordinator, the second Sebastian, introduce the panelists and the conference and give us some instruction that we will follow. Sebastian, I give you
the microphone. Thank you, Liz. Welcome, everyone. I'm Sébastien Brousseau. I'm the brand new researcher and coordinator of at OBVIA's Cybersecurity and Societal Impact Hub. It's a really great pleasure to be here with you all, distinct guests, speakers, and audience for this joint conference between the Hub and the Cybersecurity School of Korea University. Since our first speaker, this morning for you colleagues in Korea has limited time and will have to leave us in about 30 minutes. I will do a quick flyover the logistic of the event and get back with more detail later if need be. We have 4 speakers and 2 special guests for this webinar. The speakers are Pierre-Martin Tardif, professor at the School of Management at University Sherbrooke. At University Sherbrooke. Hello, Pierre-Martin. I say right away, don't hesitate to correct me with the Korean names, the pronunciation and all. I may be wrong about that. So the second presenter tonight will be GyeHyun Jang, professor at Korea University. Then after that, we'll have Daniel Caron, professor at École nationale d'administration publique. And finally, we'll have Sébastien Gams, professor at the Computer Science Department of Université du Québec à Montréal. The length of each presentation will be about 20 minutes, and we'll have a question and answer period after the 4 presentation. Feel free to use the Q&A tab on your screen to type your question and indicate if it is directed directly to a speaker or to all of them. Joining the discussion for this Q&A will be our 2 special guests. So we have Professor Eun-Young Kwon, Dean of the Cybersecurity School of Korea University, as well as Director of the Information Protection Division at the Presidential Committee of the Digital Platform Government, and also President of the Korea Society of IT Services. Also joining us will be Sang-Kun Lee. Again, don't hesitate to correct me. Professor at Korea University. A special welcome to them both. I'll give the title of each speaker's presentation along the way, but without further ado, I give the mic to Pierre-Martin Tardif for his talk entitled The Renewal of the Canadian Digital Identity Ecosystem as a Public-Private Initiative, How to Respect Privacy and Maintain Integrity.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
you have the mic.
Hi, everybody. So I want to salute Professor Lee, Professor Kwon, and Professor Jang, and also my colleagues, Professor Langlois, Professor Caron, and Professor Gams. I want to especially thank Liz to invite us and to organize this event. And I think like us all, it's my second language, the English language. So I'll try to do my best not to have a too difficult to understand accent. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm a professor at the School of Management and also a cybersecurity researcher. I have a special profile. I'm coming from the engineering side, and I'm doing, I should say, like a joint venture with the Computer Science Department here at University of Sherbrooke. And we're doing different kind of research. And we really like collaboration with other universities. I think that's why you have 4 professors from Canadian University here tonight. And my presentation is just setting the table. You know, I don't go too deep. It's just to talk about the digital identity landscape in Canada. And I think Professor Caron will go deeper on the trust side. So as a starter, you know, here we're at the dinner time. On your side, you're at the breakfast time. So to start the lunch, I should say, we look at the definition of digital identity. The best way to look at it, it's maybe to look at the ISO standard, because that's one way that everybody understands each other from one country to another. And I hope my translations are fine. I tried to do my best. I did it with DeepL, and I swapped several times between Korean and English, and I tried to keep the semantic and also the purposes. So I hope it will help you to follow up my presentation. So it's a set of attributes, and that's one of the things that we need to clarify if we want to do research, and to do not only research on the scientific side, but also on the human side. We need to think about this. And it's linked to an entity. So I will go a bit deep down further about the attributes. So we've got someone here, and she's using internet. And when you look at her digital identities, you can find duplicates, even in a single system. And that's maybe affect the quality of the services, because when you want to reach out your customer, you don't want to reach out each of them several times with the same message. And also you want to keep track, let's say, of their buying or of their relationship with you. And if you have several duplicates, then you have a problem. And that has been the case since the beginning of doing a civilian registry about your population, because you want to have one entry per person. And why you want to do that? Because maybe you have some privileges attached to a single person, and you don't want to lose track of it. And then came the technology, came aside, and you've got the biometrics, which is a special kind of, I should say, identity attribute, because this is more sensible. You should not be able to reverse engineer the process and, let's say, to identify someone from their biometrics. And usually we think that it's a quite safe way of identifying people, because usually you've got single threats of character, like maybe here the face, are your ears are distance, maybe the width of your mouth, some ratios, and maybe the form of your nose. And then you've got something maybe that was not foreseen even 8 years ago. You've got a lot of identities everywhere that can be used to identify a single person. And that causes maybe some problem, because you're maybe not aware of the secondary use of these IDs. And then you need to be aware of that. And that's brought, and we'll talk about it a bit later, about the privacy concerns. And then you've got the entities. We focus ourselves on the people, but we're doing research about the identity for the objects, and how do you authenticate a single object, but that's another problem. That's not our tonight presentation. You've got the same thing with organization. You need to be sure, if you want to do a contract with a single organization, that the person who wants to sign you the contract is allowed to do this, and it's a real company, and it's having a real business. And even with software. And that's another kind of problem, because we have seen a lot of I should say, attack in the last years of maybe injecting software, replacing software, or even making fake interfaces. And then you download, you think the right software, but that's not true. So you need one way to ensure yourself that when you are trying to install something, let's say on your mobile phone, that it's the real thing. But let's go back to the people. For the digital identity of a single person, we think it must be user-centric. You know, we want someone to be able to control who access what about your own digital identity, which is linked somehow to your real identity. You want it to be flexible or interoperable. You want it to be maybe a single source of information. You don't want to have many identification systems in your organization. And for quality's sake, you want it to be durable. You don't want it to cost too much. You want it to be verifiable and secure. And what does it mean, secure? It depends. And your identity services, which I should say it's in the field of really defining what we mean here, like the digital wallet, it's getting more and more, I should say, public space, because it could be one way to replace what was existing in the physical space. And these tools here will support your digital identity. You're gonna have relaying party, someone that will confirm that your identity is true and that is really you, and what kind of habilitation you can have on another person's system, which can be, as an example, electronic transactions. And we've got that from a long time. You know, when you're using your credit card, it's your credit card company with a relaying party that confirms that you can do a transaction and will, let's say, ensure that the supplier that he will be paid if it wasn't on the fraud side. And you also have a lot of entities, and here it can be thought as maybe your real identity if you're a person. And there we go deeper on the human side. It's coming from a paper that was in French, and they call About Myself and My Digital Identity. It's a kind of a funding paper. It was very interesting. And they separate the identity in three parts. The first part is what we're used to. It's called the declarative identity. You've got the UNESCO, who can provide you what kind of information you can gather from your population, from your citizen, and what kind of categories and what kind of information you should gather to fill out these attributes. You've got also some derived from your actions. Let's say I buy myself a political membership from a party. Usually this means that maybe their way of thinking about Canada, in our case, in my case, about the Canadian politics, is more oriented to their way of thinking, and it talks about myself. If I have a card to do some sports, let's say it's tennis, then it also defines myself. But that's okay, you know, because that kind of a public way of knowing that, you just chat with me and I will give you information about that. And we don't really care. We don't like everybody to know about that, but that could be okay. But the worst part is about the computed identity. Here, using AI or any other sources of correlation, I try to guess characteristics about you. And some of them, you want to keep them secret. It can be your sexual habits. It can be what kind of, I was talking about politics, but maybe your deep thoughts about the politics. And it can even be something that you are unaware of. You don't know. But they derive that by the way you're using systems and using your basic information from you, and the way you, let's say you just use internet, what kind of buying you're doing, they can guess things about you, and which means for a democracy, which means that I can manipulate you. Because if I know something that you're not aware about, but that's deeply anchored into yourself, this means I can make you things that you would not do in a normal way. So we want to protect that. And I think the first who really reacted about that, and I'm not sure, was the European. With the GDPR, they said that's enough. You can do business with our citizens, but you need them to be aware what kind of computed identity you can do with the information related to them. And there's the classic Cambridge Analytics scandal that went into the place when we had, I think, 2 elections ago in United States. And as a surprise, that company doesn't exist anymore. It just ceased to exist a few, I don't know if it matter of weeks, but after a certain time, after the scandal have been put out, it was public. So we need to do something about that. And there's something exists from a long time ago. We can, and I'm not aware about the Asian countries and the way you design these kind of choices. So it's more related to United States, okay? Because in Canada, we're close to United States and we're sometimes immersed in their way of thinking. But it came from in the 70s from United States. It has been taken by the United Nations, and then it has been refined as the ISO 29100. And there you've got 11 principles. I will not enumerate all of them. But if you look at the GDPR, or I will switch screen, or the PIPEDA in Canada, or the law or the Bill 25 in the province of Quebec, so Canadian law. But here in Quebec, we have, because it's a federation, we have some laws that are more Canadian and some that are more related to the jurisdiction. And here we have a law which, when you read them, you find all of these principles that are applied. And that haven't changed since 2011. And it's not that nobody were aware of doing that. It's just maybe the use cases, the misuse cases, I should say, in that part, were not all known, and we didn't know how much the importance of protecting privacy. And about trust, and Danielle, I'm sorry if I cover things that you will cover later on. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your understanding. You've got, and University of Sherbrooke have been a member for the last, we're at our 3rd year. It's called CCIAN. It's about authentication and digital identity. So they have designed kind of a hub. It's not a research hub. It's more designed from the enterprise part. And they said, we want to propose stuff to the government. So our digital identity in Canada could evolve. And they start with pretty basic stuff that are not presented here. And then for the last year, I would say that they're coming with new orientations. And these are norms, standards, but Canadian standards. So they are proposed as standards. And you know, a standard lives if companies take that into account. And they are oriented toward designing trust in the system. So to design trust, they need to authenticate with, we have 4 levels. And at the 4th one, you're doing sensible stuff, like maybe reviewing a legal file about someone. And then if you do that, maybe you're a lawyer and you're defending your client, and then you're allowed. You've got credentials. How do we define finally who you are? And what kind of proof can we use? And what kind of basics can we work with? You've got the digital wallet, which is linked to the self-sovereign identity. You know, we want to be user-centric. And how can it be built? What kind of standards should you use to be able to exchange with the digital wallet of someone? The infrastructure, so how do you operate that? Notice and consent, so it's about how are you sure that what you're doing with the information you collected is the right thing you need to do. The trust registries, and there you define the people, the organization, and how you make your ecosystem live. And how do you verify organization and persons? And you don't take the stance of a government. You can be a company, you can be even an individual, and you want to work with other people. So if you want to use the technology that I should say is common or sold by the different companies, if you want to use them in the right way, you should conform to these different standards. We are working with the Canadian city. I think it's the 5th largest city in Canada, about their digital identity. And we're working with them. They're about to put out their first system. And what they do, they have read the literature. We have, I should say, vulgarized it. And they're trying to operate that. And instead of having 4 levels, they're having 3, because the lowest level for them, they don't need to verify anything. It's like you can be a tourist, you go to that city, and you have to you need to have information, let's say, to buy stuff, or maybe rent an hotel, or go to a restaurant, and you want to have special pricing. As a conclusion, so as Danielle will put it out again, I guess, trust is essential. It's the bare minimum. If you go below trust, you have nothing. That's it. And you need to have everybody agree that you can trust what is proposed. And you need to take your time and ensure that it's rock solid. You cannot do research and put it out the next day. It won't work that way. The second, it's not just about technology, it's about people. We know that because we're in cybersecurity. So that's maybe not as a useful statement, but it's there. And the state, which I mean, let's say Canadian country, Korea country, has more than its say. And we need to keep it that way, okay? Because unless we remove the frontiers between the countries, it's about the sovereignty of your own country. And it must never give on declarative identity. And I've seen that in other countries. I won't name it here. And it's not Korea, it's not Canada, but they're throwing away part of it. And I don't think it's going in the right direction right now. And we're still a long way from well-established set of standards. I've shown you Canadian starting standards. Some of them, I think half of them have been made public this year. And it's like a slow cooking, you know, it takes a lot of time to achieve them. And in terms of research, so we're trying using mathematics to formalize trust between entities. That's one of our research. And also with another professor, which could not attend tonight, we're questioning about social acceptability. You know, if you want to have trust, then it needs to be kind of relevant and acceptable to the users, which are usually your citizens. And finally, for self-sovereign identity, which seems to be a lot of promises, but we're not sure if there's not some broken to-be promises in there. And as an example, and we have asked a few questions about that, still have no answer. Let's say you want to back up your digital wallet. So if somebody backups it for you, it means that you don't have the total control on your digital wallet, even if we are selling to you that it's your own control, because someone has a copy of it. So it's not like your cards in your wallet. You need someone to have a copy, because if you lose it and you need to prove again your identity, somebody needs to have access to your ID. So I thank you. Sorry for the short time. I'm having a course. We are at the end of the semester, and the students are doing a presentation tonight. It's starting in 5 minutes. So that's why I need to leave you. I would love to speak with you and to have a conversation. It will be a next time.
We're doubly thankful, Pierre-Martin Tardif, for your presentation and for your availability tonight. We wish you a good course, and thanks for setting the table. It was very interesting, and I was talking about the Q&A later on for the people who are attending, so don't hesitate to ask questions even concerning Pierre-Martin's presentation, because I'm sure we will cover the other aspect of the subject later on. So
I'm sure
thank you very much again.
The other professor, Professor Caron, Professor Gams, can do a great job of answering it if you have any question. Thank you all. Hoping to meet you in person in the future.
Thanks again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so now, like I repeated, but yeah, so there will be a Q&A after the 4 presentation. And so you can start already if you want to write specifically in the Q&A section, Q&A tab on your screen. You can write a question. I can read it for you. If you insist, you may be, we may let you ask it yourself. So just specify it in the question. Now we will have GyeHyun Jang, professor at Korea University, speak to us. The title of his presentation. How am I doing with your name there? Professor Lang. Oh, are you there? Okay, I will introduce you and I don't see you on the screen. Are you there, Professor Lang? Yeah, Jang, I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Oh, excellent. Okay. So the title of the presentation of Professor Jang will be Digital Technologies of Trust, Online Authentication in Korea. So yeah, I give you the mic, and yeah, just tell me once again if I'm okay with your name there. I'm sorry about the pronunciation.
Hello and bonsoir. I am GyeHyun Jang, a research professor at Korea University. I was truly impressed by the presentation. Actually, my presentation deals with Korea's past, maybe out-of-date policies and implementations from the 1960s up to 2020. As Dean Kwon is not only the representative expert in this field, also he participated in this progress. I believe he can cover up-to-date issues and the overall progresses. Actually, my presentation will be a summary of my paper in 2021 that I worked jointly with Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Carnegie was interested in researching Korea's ICT policies and implementation cases, showing an interest in approach different from United States and China, as they named this project as Korea is Forging Third Way. Carnegie was interested in Korea's several unique cases related to online authentication. They are curious about the backgrounds driving entities, policies, and any issues or challenges encountered with this progress. So the research can be summarized as follows. Online authentication can be broadly divided into 2 categories. First one is online identification, which is verify certain users' identity in online. So this is the process of confirming whether the user providing and processing personal data. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the. This is the process of confirming whether the user's identity, that providing and processing their personal data during online service registration and usage is indeed the person they claim to be. So Korea has implemented a unique authentication system by the Korean government in online verification, such as the resident registration number and IPIN, and later transition to authentication through private services which is the mobile network operators and other credit card companies and other companies. The second part is the authentication of activities conducted in online. This is necessary to prevent denial of activities, non-repudiation. Typically, digital signature are used for this purpose. Korea developed a unique certification system known as the authorized certificate, which is the national public key infrastructure based. And this system used for nearly 20 years. Also, this system also employed for identity verification and has led the early development of the Korea's internet. But due to several issues, it has been abolished since 2021. Before addressing the Korea's online authentication policies and implementation, an understanding of Korea's unique characteristics are required. Korea is one of the most advanced countries in ICT worldwide, consistently ranking at the top of the ITU development indexes, not only in terms of the ICT infrastructure, but also in utilization. Korea is proven by its top ranking in the United Nations e-government survey. Also, various factors have enabled Korea's ICT development, the key being the government ICT development policies. Through the government leadership, Korea has made various efforts in network development and expansion, as well as new technology development. And the other factors will be cultural factors, including being city-centered, having a high population density, which is compared to Canada, Korea has very small, but there are so many high population density. And also Korea has quick culture that prefers speed in services. Also, another significant characteristics of Korea is being divided nation, with the northern part, DPRK, continuously threatening South Korea. Since the 1960s, DPRK has persistently threatened South Korea's security through military provocation and spy infiltrations. Also from 2009, North Korea has consistently threatened South Korea through the cyber attacks. So that is why the Korean government has the government-led policies in online authentication, not only online authentication, but nationwide authentication systems. So this is the summary of my research. The policy and implementation was mostly done by the Korean government. So first, look the online identification. In the 1960s, to counter threats from North Korea, the Korean government implemented a national registration system, assigning a unique resident registration number to all the citizens. In the early days of the internet, this RRN, the resident registration number, was used for online identification. However, this led issues regarding the collection and leakage risk of unique identifiers, eventually limiting the collection of and use of the resident registration numbers in online. So in 2006, to replace the government has some regulation, the abandoned collection of the RRN in online. And since the 2016, permission to change RRN of a person affected by personal information leaks. So it is abandoned to collect RRN in online if other laws are permitting, unless other laws are permitting. So in 2006, Korean government to replace the resident registration number. So the Korean government adopted the Internet Personal Identification Number, which is IPIN. IPIN use a hash function to create a number from the resident registration number. Subsequently, in 2010, IPIN 2.0 was introduced, adding CI and DI functions. The CI is information to connect a specific person for interlinking between two different services, and DI is information to prevent duplicate signups. As IPIN was implemented as an ID and password-based authentication, it later added CAPTCHA authentication and anti-keylogger to respond security threats. So in this process, being implemented mostly with the ActiveX, which only activated in Internet Explorer in Windows operating system. And ActiveX has many security vulnerabilities, so it caused some security threats and also caused inconvenience to users. Additionally, in 2015, after the hacking of an IPIN issuing organizations, which caused inconvenience like reissuance and resistance toward IPIN grows. So eventually, government abandoned the use of the IPIN in online, even though it is still used in online, but it is not mandated to use IPIN system. So additionally, in 2015, after the hacking of an IPIN issuing organization, which caused inconvenience, so another method used alongside with IPIN, which is the mobile network operators are issuing the online identification services. In 2012, the Korea Communication Commission designated some mobile network operators as private identification organization, allowing authentication through these entities. So this method uses personal information and mobile phone numbers registered in the telephone companies to authenticate individuals by sending them an SMS to mobile number registered, and then get feedback from the authentication numbers. Also in 2017, additional entities such as the credit card companies were designated as the identity verification organizations, which authentication functions through their mobile apps or QR codes being added alongside with the SMS authentication. So this method, due to its convenience, has been more widely used compared to IPIN, and continues to be a major online identity verification method till nowadays. Also, the second part is the authentication in online. Korea has addressed authentication online primarily through a unique system called the National Public Infrastructure Based Authorized Certificate, which is NPKI based AC. Korea has addressed this online authentication system primarily through a unique system. The Korean government enacted the Digital Signature Act in 1999, and based on this law, built the NPKI-based AC architecture in 2001. This was utilized for online identity verification, thereafter becoming a crucial infrastructure as its use was mandated for online banking and financial transactions exceeding 3,001, around 250 US dollars. And it is also mandated in e-government related authorization, and so on. Although the MPKI-based AC could have been a proficient infrastructure, it encountered two major issues. Firstly, during its implementation by security, mostly from security companies, the development became dependent on specific platforms such as the ActiveX, which is, I mentioned earlier, the Internet Explorer, dependent on Internet Explorer, which is the Windows operating system. And the second issue is it has the superiority status granted by the government. Despite the potential for the development of other authentication methods, the government awarded superiority and mandatory provision to MPKI-based AC. So it hindered the progress of private authentication methods. So due to this inconvenience, mostly in smartphone environments, the government began abolishing the mandatory provision related to this authentication system from 2014. And ultimately, the system was abolished by President Moon in 2017. So in December 2020, all provisions related to use and application of AC were amended in the Digital Signature Act, and which means losing the public or authorized or superiority status. So it means that various certification methods are being used as equal status. So although the MPKI-based AC renamed the joint certificate are continued to be available, but it was phased out due to this inconvenience. So with the abolition of the public certification system in 2020, various private authentication methods were developed and utilized. Financial certificate used jointly by financial institutions, authentication method providing through apps by online service providers like mobile messengers, and mobile authentication apps by telecommunications companies were launched. So in nowadays, these authentication methods are used as same status. So or the citizens can select their authentication method as they want to use in online. So these certification systems are used nowadays. In conclusion, the development of online authentication policy in Korea has unfolded a unique environment due to, first, it is being driven by the government, and second, it is being influenced by a unique context involving resident registration numbers. Third, the government granting superiority to a particular method. And fourth, unintentionally generated some inconvenience during development, such as the ActiveX. So the government's leadership in driving a specific infrastructure resulted in rapid initial dissemination and relatively secure advancement in internet transactions, which is a positive aspect. But however, with the advent of various changes in the environment, such as the smartphones, so these technologies were discarded due to causing some inconvenience to users. And additionally, Korea has powerful infrastructure such as the resident registration number or unified individual identification system, but we cannot utilizing these systems in online, such as the digital identity. There were some attempts to bring out various changes, such as the electronic registration system card, are being tackled due to concerns about the government being big brothers from civic groups. Therefore, some discussions among stakeholders in society are crucial elements. So these are the lessons from the Korean's online authentication development, and thanks for the hearing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Jang, for this this presentation. It spurred a lot of questions for me. I don't know about you, but that was very interesting. So thanks again. Now we will give the mic to Daniel J. Caron, professor at École nationale administration publique, lovingly called ÉNAP here in Quebec. So, Professor Caron, I will give you the mic, and you can give a bit more information about you if you want, and just go ahead with your presentation, please.
Sure, Sebastian. If Professor Jang, if you can remove your presentation, yeah, great, because I was not able to upload mine. That's perfect. Thanks a lot. And your presentation was very interesting, and you know, it makes me laugh a little bit because it seems to be so easy and straightforward in the type of institutions you're in compared to us, as you will see. And this is what I'm going to try to explain to you tonight, is that we are in a different context. And so I will show you well, I'd say that it presents more difficulties, but in any case, and we did a study with my colleague Christian Boudreau on during the pandemic to see the social, how the implementation of surveillance in South Korea and Quebec, we compare both. So was evolving, and it was interesting to see the impact of the institution, the way we are organized on, in fact, the acceptance of surveillance or not. So we can discuss it later. So my introduction will be around technological innovation. Just a word on that. Technological innovation, so that's what we're in, and organizational and institutional innovations have to be done at the same time. So if we want to have effective technological innovation, so if we want this to work, if we want the digital identity to work, then we need to adapt the technological innovation with the institutional that we have, the institutions that we have, but also we can innovate. And that's probably one of the major barriers in terms of digital transformation at large, is this difficulty we have in innovating into with you know, our public organization. So what I would like to say also is that we did a study on social acceptability, so that you see there, it's in French, and we published an article in English, so this is where I put it there, so if you want to read it, on the sharing of the health information data. And so that's what led us to have a better understanding of the issues that people had with sharing their personal information, their health information, with different stakeholders like the government itself, so the health professionals, but also with other departments, and also with researchers. And so you will find the results. We did it in experimental economics, so informing people at one point in the survey. So if you understand that there will be benefits, or are you going to change your mind? And what you see is that information is extremely important, and that led us to develop the study I'm going to talk about a little bit later on digital identity, trying to understand what we can do to make it work in the current environment that we're in. So the first thing I'd like to do is to talk to you a little bit about the Canadian context, so, and its implication. In Canada, we have 3 levels of governments, but the 2 most important ones, the federal and the provincial, are at the same level, I would say. And so we have a division of powers, so which means that each of these entities have certain powers. So like at the provincial level, you have education, you have healthcare, that are the most important ones. So, and then you have also environmental issues that will be dealt with at the provincial level. but also at the federal level, as I will show you. But this is important to understand because they're autonomous in their own powers, so in their own jurisdictions. So it's important to keep that in mind when we're trying to build a digital identity, as you will see. So what it means, the implication of this federation, and this is how it works. So we have a shared service offering across jurisdictions, like we have health at the provincial level, and we have immigration and refugees at the federal level. But also, and this is to make it a little bit more complex, there is health also at the federal level, and there is also immigration at the provincial level. So it's not that simple as you put, you know, things in two different bottles. It's there is a mix of things. So it's shared service offering across jurisdictions, but also each jurisdiction can be involved in the others' jurisdictions. So it complicates a little bit the context we're in. We have also multiple service points. So I was there. In fact, I was with the public service, the federal public service, when we developed Service Canada in the late 90s. Then at the same time, we had Service Quebec, Service Ontario, and New Brunswick. Each province has its own single window to deliver services to its citizens. And we have also, and this is key, duplication, and it relates a little bit to what Pierre-Martin was saying about PIPEDA and the Loi 25, the 25 bill 25. So duplication of certain laws and or regulations. So, and they're not necessarily the same in their content. Some are more demanding and some are less demanding. So we need to keep that in mind also when we go with the development of the digital identity. And we have also, obviously, duplication of data collection to identify and also to interact with citizens. So it's a complex environment in which we have to develop solutions that we hope will be best for citizens. And it reminds me, we had worked what we call at the time the blue pages. Some of you may remember in Canada, so we had blue pages, and the blue pages were divided. You started with, at the federal level, then the provincial level, and then you had the municipal level. And we did the focus groups in the late 90s, and people were telling us, when I'm looking for a pool, I don't care if it's federal, provincial, or municipal. I want to go to the pool with my kids. So, but we have those divisions, and it's important to understand that when we are working within Canada. So the first, what you have is citizen digital identity, as everybody's working on this now, obviously, and it has been in the work for some time. So this is the definition that the Quebec government is using. So citizen digital identity is personal and unique, safe, private, optional also. And lately, like 3-4 weeks ago, so the federal government also decided to mandate a minister. So this is the mandate letter of a minister, the Minister of Citizen Services. And within his mandate letter, it's clearly stated that work with the president of the Treasurer Board to create a trusted digital identity platform to support seamless service delivery to Canadians across the country. So this will probably implies, or in fact raise some interesting discussions in the future. So because what will be, are we going to have several digital identities? Are we going to have one? So I know technology can resolve some of these issues, but it's there. And so some of the questions that are, coming with that environment is that we know that digital identity creation will require data collection. So it's based on some data collections to be able to identify the person. So I think that it was clear in both presentations. And also, there will be data sharing eventually. I know it's not necessarily something that is being discussed, presented now as such, because we see that as more a way to attest that we are the right person. But eventually, there will be data sharing, and we saw that with what we call the social insurance number that was created in Canada, and it's unique. We only have one, but this was eventually used to connect different databases. And that's probably what will happen. So we need to think in advance here and see that with the digital identity, there will be a possibility to increase the data sharing, and then for good reasons, in fact, to influence policy orientations, to build a sounder policies, but this will also at the same time raise a series of questions. And the first one will be issues of trust. So there is one truster, which is the citizen, but there are, for this same citizen, several trustees, that will be involved in this digital identity management. So the federal government, for sure, the provincial government, for sure, the private sector, it's already there with the banks, and also municipal government, several municipal government. So the issues around trust will be extremely important, because you don't necessarily have the same level of trust with one government and another, and it varies according to who is there. So it's a complex issue that we have to deal with. And it raises questions, also management and legal issues questions. So who will be accountable? What privacy laws or regulations will apply? We saw that PIPEDA and Bill 25 are different, and Bill 25 is more demanding. So if we work together with the digital identity at the federal, provincial level, and remember, there is more than one province, and I know that British Columbia, another province, is quite advanced on its digital identity. So, so how are we going to connect all of this, and what laws and regulations will apply in terms of privacy, for instance? Who will access what data for what purposes, and who will decide also on what measures will apply in terms of managing these information and this digital identity? Because there will be management requirements or legal issues around data collection, around the digital identity itself, and also around data sharing. So these are important issues, and we saw during the study we did on health information sharing, we saw the importance of making sure that citizens are on board if we want to make this effective, if we want to make this work properly. So those questions are extremely important. And in conclusion, I would say my main questions is how to avoid the tragedy of the commons or of the anti-commons. So how do we make sure that we will benefit from the wealth of information that can be harvested now with the technologies we have, and also making sure that this digital identity will properly serve the citizens. And we could also be, if we're not coordinated properly, we could get into trouble in harvesting those benefits. And just a reminder, because that's where we're going with the next study, trust is a learning process. So, and it came very clear, excuse me, it came very clear out of the first study we did that trust is never definitive. So you may be trusting a government now, you don't know tomorrow. It will depend on many factors. So it's something that, is alive. It's a sensitive issue. And it's a function of motivation and capacity. So people are looking at it from the perspective of, is this government motivated to do the right things to protect my identity, to protect my privacy, my data? And does it have the capacity? And is the government willing to put in place that capacity? This means that if something happens, we can, go back 10 years in terms of trust. And I remember when I was in the federal government, we had that issue around privacy. And every time there was something going on in terms of a privacy breach, we were going back years in terms of building the trust, and we had to start over again. So this is something that is extremely important to keep in mind if we want this to work. And to make sure that it works, we need to understand what are the citizens' needs. So we need to know what do they want, what will make them, supportive of the initiatives around digital identity, and what how can we build what Pierre-Martin mentioned also in terms of social acceptability so that we can move forward and, you know, use this digital identity. But the major thing is really to make sure that, given that we are in a complex institutional environment, is to build the proper coordination mechanism so we make it effective. And it means between the provinces, with the federal government, with the municipalities, and probably with the private sector. So we will need to have a very good regulatory framework so we can move forward with the digital identity. And I know the questions will be taken later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Daniel Caron. It's very interesting to see the parallels between both Daniel Caron's presentation and Professor Jang's presentation. So I'm sure we'll have a question related to that later. So thanks again, Mr. Caron, for that excellent presentation. Very energetic as well. That's excellent. And I just take this time before I introduce the last speaker for tonight to just remind those who maybe arrived later after the initial presentation of the event that if you have questions or comments, please, you can write them in the Q&A and we will address them after the last presentation. So it's a good time if you have questions to write them right now if you want. So the last presentation will be by Sébastien Gams, professor at the Computer Science Department of Université du Québec à Montréal. The title of his presentation will be Privacy and Security Issues in Digital Identity Schemes. So, Sébastien, go ahead.
Thanks for the introduction and the invitation, and very nice to be able to do a joint meeting between Korea and Canada despite the time difference. So my talk is going to actually discuss some of the issues that were already mentioned previously. So my objective is just to give you a few, I would say, highlights of privacy and security issues related to digital identity. And of course, this also relates to trust. So the trust that you have in the digital identity scheme will depend on how well security, but also privacy of people is taken into account in the technology. So just to come back to what is identity used for. So if we think about the physical identity document, usually we are using it when we enter Canada or Korea. We can also use it to prove, for instance, that we have a discount when we go to some theater. So it's also can prove something about the location where you live. So if you are in Montreal and you want to borrow a book from a municipal library, maybe you have to prove that you live in the neighborhood, or even if you take the plane, your identity is used to check that you are or not in some sensitive list before you are allowed to go in the plane. And so what are the security risks of, I would say, physical cards? So one is if you lose your, for instance, your passport or your identity card in France, then maybe somebody will use it and take your identity. But also when it's physical, usually the risk of fake identity is, I mean, easier to take a fake physical card or fake identity card, but also in terms of privacy, each time you show your, for instance, your identity card at the library or your passport, then in addition of knowing that you live in this particular neighborhood, all the information that is on your identity card is also available to the person checking your identity. So in terms of privacy, there is no, I would say, minimization of data with respect to a particular functionality. You have to disclose everything at once. And if you think about electronic identity card, usually the security is a bit better. So if you have a passport with a physical secure chip, it's also more difficult to counterfeit and possibly even more secure because of the use of biometrics that was mentioned in the first talk. But still, in terms of privacy, it can be quite intrusive because all the identity information usually is also readable and can easily be recorded. And then if you start to log every use of the digital, of the electronic identity card, you can also have a kind of generalized tracking systems. So, and it was already mentioned in previous, so I think the social acceptability is really a key aspect for digital identity. For instance, here is a an example where United Kingdom tried to have an identity card a few years ago, but basically, in contrast to other countries like France, there is now like a long tradition of having such identity card, and basically this was a £1 billion project that was finally just removed because the trust of the public was not there, and so the next government decided to just abandon the digital identity scheme. So we have to also remember that if trust and social acceptability is not there, then there is a risk that it's once again another project to make a digital identity, which will cost millions or billions of dollars and just going to be abandoned. So basically, digital identity, as is mentioned, is the extension of, I would say, identity card to the online setting. The idea is it can be used for administrative tasks, but also commercial tasks. For instance, you can use it to pay your property tax, to apply for a building permit. And here I put an example of France, where basically using the digital identity, you can check the number of points you have in your driving license. So you can know whether or not you are okay to drive. So here also, if we think about the expected benefits in terms of security, we can expect the reduction of fraud and identity theft by like strengthening the verification of identity. And also one of the benefits is promised to citizens in that instead of having multiple passwords for each of the institution or administration, you will be able to use a single sign-on, so one authentication to with a login and a password to authenticate to a lot of different entities. And my objective is not to give like a full detail of all the security challenges, but as it was mentioned in the first talk, we see more and more I would say standardization of digital identity. So the NIST organization in USA, which is responsible, for instance, for the standard in the digital signature and digital encryption, has also some guidelines on digital identity. So basically, you can try to classify a digital identity scheme in terms of security based, for instance, on the level of authenticity of identity. So is it just an identity that I self-declare? Or has it been some verification of my existence by using identification document produced by the states? Or is it even a stronger verification where you have to show up physically at some location before your digital identity can be created? You can also think about the security in terms of robustness of authentication. So do you use only the login and password, or do you use what is called two-factor authentication, where you combine the password with maybe one-time password or code sent to your phone, or biometric authentication? Or is it possible even that you have a kind of hardware-based authenticator? So in Germany, for instance, there was a project that you have a dedicated readers that you have to plug to your computer, in which you can basically connect your digital identity card, and then you can verify by the information on the chip whether the identity is true. So this will be like the strongest level of robustness of authentication. And then you can also check in terms of the information which is transmitted to the service provider, what is the strength of the cryptographic claim? So does it use signature? Does it use also encryption? And or does it use even a kind of cryptographic key which is linked to the particular identity statement that you have to prove? So in terms of privacy, one of the privacy issues is when you start to have a digital identity, basically it's become very easy to record the trace that people do of their identity. So in contrast to the physical card, where you have to show the card, and then it would take like an effort of somebody to write that you have been seen at a particular place. When it's digital, it's very easy to start to collect log and create log about all the usage of the identity of the person. And then it's very easy also to cross-reference this usage across different databases to kind of profile the citizen. So for instance, in Quebec, there's maybe the project of using this identity also when you go to buy alcohol at the state society. So you can imagine that if the information of the alcohol that you bought is also logged, then maybe someday they will also be used to kind of infer your health condition, or whether or not you are costing a lot of money to the Quebec government because you consume a lot of alcohol. The fact that the data is centralized will also mean that maybe the government will want to use this data to have partnership with private companies. So if my health data is partner with, I don't know, insurance company. You can imagine also the impact of citizen. And if you think another recent example, during the COVID pandemic, people were thinking of using the financial transaction of people to also find if they are moving a lot or if they respect the confinement. So you can imagine that you might tap on the data collected from the digital identity to check on the habits on people. And even more dramatic, imagine that one day you were moving from a democratic society to a kind of dictatorship. You can imagine that all the data that is generated by the digital identity can also be used to try to infer what are the person that might be against the government in place. So we have to be careful of avoiding a kind of big brother architecture. And another question related to privacy is also who is the owner of the data. So when you create a lot of data and metadata because of your use of a digital identity, does it belong to a user? So can I decide what is done with the data? Can I erase some of the data, or is it something that belongs to the government? And so what are the governance rules that are put in place? I think it's also a very important part. And I think also one possibility is also to have a specific law. So when you do a digital identity, it's like a project that you do for society for a very long time. So I think it's very good to have a kind of specific law which try to define what is the data collected and what are the rules of governance. So I don't want to go in technical detail, but one thing I want to mention is with a master student, we are currently reviewing the digital identity scheme in several countries, and usually a lot of them are based on a protocol called open authorization, which is basically an authentication protocol where you can decide to grant access to a resource if the client is able to authentify with an identifier and password. And this basically, usually you have, so if you give the example of accessing a bank, you have a server which is providing, basically checking your identity. And if the identity authentication works, you get an access to a token that you can show to a different service provider to get access to a particular resource. So just to mention, although this protocol is quite old, in my community in privacy, I'm just taking 2 examples of paper published last summer, so a few months ago, about the privacy and security of such schemes. So one paper was doing a privacy analysis of this protocol, and in particular of deployments that have been done in the web. And there is still a lot of privacy risk and privacy issues that need to be solved. Another protocol that is used quite a lot for digital identity scheme in a lot of states is OpenID Connect, which is basically developed by OpenID Foundation, which was created by companies like Google and Microsoft. It's, for instance, the basis of the identity scheme used in France, which is called France Connect. And it's a bit more, I would say, rich than the authorization protocol. So it has also some provision about the fact that you can transmit user attributes such as name, address to the service provider. And also the consent is also directly managed when you connect to a particular service provider. So there is this privacy notion of asking the consent of the user about the data that is shared. But here again, also at this last year conference, which is called PETS, there was also a paper trying to analyze the privacy issue related to OpenID. So basically, not going into the technical detail, I want to mention that even in the technical landscape, there is a lot of things moving on. And there is a lot of security and privacy issues that are not yet fixed in the standard and in protocols that have been developed for a long time. So even if you are a particular government and you say, okay, now I want to use OpenID to base my identity scheme, there is still a lot of security and privacy issues that is going to be researched. So you have to be really careful about what you do at deployment time. And going back to also the European eIDAS privacy requirements, in the law, you see that basically whatever technical choice you do, you have to ensure that privacy is also taken into account. So you have to be sure that you minimize the data which is transmitted to a particular service provider. And if possible, you should also provide unlinkability, which means that across different service providers, the user should not be identified. So if you have 2 service providers, like 2 companies that put together the information, they have about a particular user, they should not be able to say that these two identities are related to the same person. And you see also that it's a European standard. Each country can go a bit further into the privacy requirements that they have. So, for instance, in the British EIDs, there is a provision that the identity provider should not know which application is being used by the client. So this avoids like the centralization of data, or where every time you use your identity, the government know which service provider you have access. And in Germany, it's even stronger that each transaction that you do with your identity should be with a different pseudonym, which makes all these transactions unlinkable. So even if you have different service providers that go together, it's very hard to attach all these transactions to the same identity. And also, as we discussed briefly all in the first talk, depending on the model that you choose for the digital identity, so depending on the federated model or isolated model, the privacy requirement can be different. And also, decentralized identity could be a way to go forward. One thing that is actually based on the literature review that we are doing is that self-referential identity is still not fully standardized. So also there is a provision at W3C to standardize it. It's not clear how to do a self-sovereign identity. And also one question that I think is a big, I would say, issue to solve if you want to go and implement a self-sovereign identity is, how can you check that an identity is not fake? So when you have people that are able to create their own identity, maybe I can create an identity on something that doesn't exist in the real world. So the dilemma, I think, between the being sure that the identity exists and the privacy, I think, is a difficult thing to solve if you go with self-sovereign identity, which I think are very working on privacy. I think it's a very interesting topic, but I think it's not yet clear how to reconcile like the authenticity of identity and the privacy requirements. And also, even at the European level, there is a lot of discussion in the last month about what is going to be the final standard for the second version of eIDAS. So I don't know if you follow this, but 1 month ago, there was a letter from basically scientific and non-profit organizations saying that there has been a change to the proposition of the regulation, which actually is like very privacy invasive, where the states will be able to follow the use of citizens of the digital identity. So if you look at this open letter, you will see that there has been a lot of discussion between the European Parliament and this scientific and also the Mandela Foundation. So I think it's not clear yet what is going to be the final standard. So this is also another sign that how to do digital identities that is, I would say, trusted by people, secure, private, is not something that is obvious. And also, just to finish, I think the properties that we would like is minimal information disclosure. So ideally, every time that I access a particular resource, I should have to reveal only one bit of information and not all the information related to my identity. Having non-linkability also helps to ensure that all the things that I do my identity cannot be reconciled or tied back to the same identity. But of course, we also want to be sure that the user cannot cheat on the property links to this identity. And one thing also we want to avoid is avoiding that somebody can sell his identity to somebody else. So a bit like when you buy alcohol in a particular shop in Quebec, you have to prove you are over 18. You want to avoid the fact that you can maybe sell or just provide your identity to somebody else for some time. And of course, we want to avoid also to be sure that it's not possible to clone an identity or to create a fake identity. And that's all for me.
Thank you very much, Sébastien Gams, for this presentation. Yeah, I could see a lot of questions emerging and maybe a discussion starting about those points among the panelists here. I don't know. I was looking at the question. We have no specific question right now. So I don't know if one of you panelists at first would like to maybe answer or grab something that Sebastien just said and say something about it. Maybe that would be a nice way to go. If not, I'm sure I will find a question of my own. Yeah, Daniel Caron, you can, I see your hand raised there.
Well, I'd like to say that what will be important is to nourish the technology with the findings that we have from the studies we're doing on trust everywhere and on social acceptability and vice versa. So, because one of the things that came out also is that citizens want to know what Sebastien is saying. And they want to be informed. It's not only, yes, we trust you. It's, okay, we trust you, but tell me more. So why should I trust you? And so they're very, very inquisitive in terms of, making sure that privacy will be there, that everything will be protected, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really something that needs to evolve, at the same time. So, and nourish one side, nourish the other side.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And since we are right in the Q&A and the discussion part of the event, I remember everyone that we're lucky to have Professor Kwon, Dean of the Cybersecurity School of Korea University, as well as Professor Lee, a professor at Korea University, that are there to jump in the discussion as well. So we welcome you to do so, or to ask question or include them in your commentary or question here. So here we go.
Yeah, I'm Professor Lee. I have to run in like 10 minutes. So, I'm first of all, I'm not the expert in like digital identity research, and just for I'm learning from the talks today, and I think there is a difference. I think Daniel mentioned about the social acceptability and social acceptance, and I think in Korea we are kind of used to using those the registration numbers, which are given whenever a person is born in South Korea, and it actually linked to like our address informations, and also with like the mobile phone numbers. And once we have that, as Professor Jang mentioned, we can use this authentication systems to give off our a more detailed information of finance, insurance, and so on. So so I think as for being Korean, I don't really see the benefit of making another digital identity, to say, because our system is working and we are kind of used to using those systems. So I think there might be some danger putting more my privacy information being stored in a one location and giving it to maybe allowing access to many others to see my information. So I'm just curious what kind of a benefit you're seeing in Canada of using these digital ID systems on top of, I think you already have the social security numbers or social insurance numbers, right? So what kind of benefits you're seeing or the necessity of making a new system?
Thanks for the question. Someone want to pick it up from our side here?
I mean, maybe one thing I could say is that the social security number is leak quite a lot of time, and in terms of the strength of avoiding identity theft and security is not very good on its own. So
I guess it's easy to counterfeit.
Yeah, and I think maybe in Canada you don't give it often, so maybe in Korea you use it more, but I mean there's a lot of
we don't use the ID numbers that often, but I think one of the most use for my kind of authentication is to whenever I make a payment, and in South Korea many people use this Samsung Pay, which actually requires your fingerprint to authenticate my credit card, and I'm using my smartphone for the payment. So I think the authentication is made whenever you make a payment. So I never show my ID. I just authenticate my credit card using my fingerprint, and it authorizes my credit card for the transaction. So, and I'm not sure I can use that for like prove my age is over like 18 years old. But I think as a technical side guy, I think we can probably like use those biometrics to like extend the authentication to more like ID type of things. So maybe I don't know.
I'm just going to add, if I may, Professor Lee, what Sébastien said. I think that, well, social insurance number has a long history, and you can find them on the sidewalks. I mean, people are not, I mean, they're all over the map. And people are, so they would be easy to counterfeit. So I don't think, when they were created, it was very useful. And I remember I was with the department at the time. And we were, in fact, we could not use them to cross two different data bank, like the external, well, the Canada Border Services and unemployment insurance, until there was a case and it went to the Supreme Court. But social insurance number would not probably pass the security test of today's environment, the environment we're in. And the information, I remember social insurance number were used, in fact, when you were renting a video at the video store. So, and it's everywhere. But with no security at all. So it was kept, you know, on a file in a small video shop. So I think we're gaining in developing this digital identity on many fronts. But the first one was probably going to be, we're going to be in a more secure, in more secure hands with that in the environment we're in. But also, I think that what I said at the beginning of my presentation, or at the end, in fact, is that it's going to be used to share data. And so more and more people are asking those data. They want to harvest data. There was an article in the newspaper again this week, and researchers complaining we don't have enough data. We want data. So it's probably the road to something like that also. And we're going to gain with that. If it's well done. If it's well done.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this, the Korean number system have no problem. So I do know there's some issues of counterfeiting.
Maybe that is another thought will be arised. The Korean number system has some specialists or some scholars arise that is so many problems in Korean number systems. But Professor Lee his opinion is that is not a significant problem in Korean number systems, especially in this stage, like as Samsung Pay. It is very easy and comfort to use when the digital transactions. I think this is a very complex theme. Today's agenda, the digital ID, is very complex and has long stories on each country. Korea has the trials and errors. In the beginning of the internet, early of 2000, we adopted the PKI systems, but there's a policy developed from preventing the influencing of other countries' services, like as a VeriSign, or the other one as the ID services at that time. It is the first stage of internet stage. So we developed kind of the national infrastructure to the transactions of the internet. That is the solution. But after 20 years, we have suffered from the old systems, like as the solutions that is not compatible for the mobile environment, like as all the citizens, all the peoples use the smartphones to their own authentic. All the devices belong to the one identifier. But there's the PKI systems, like as developed by the model of the PC, like as using sharing computer system the devices. It means it belongs to another people or another ID person. So it makes the difference, and it is so many technical regulation, like as ActiveX is not compatible for new services. So that is the question is there arises that what is the direction for the Korean digital identified future? As I am a member of the presidential committee on the dealing with this kind of policy, we gonna make a new ID system, not ID system, but the ID policies for the like as a standard. Maybe the Professor Gams suggested or introduced the new open ID system like as that. That is means some kind of ID structure as a infrastructure for the future, but the services is very difficultly or the domainly differently developed. It can be developed, I think. So we want to make a national ID. It is transferable all the area of that. Not only for the public services, like as government services, and the other one is the private transactions, like as the paying and contracting in the private sectors. So that means that a kind of standardization for the national ID infrastructure. That is the first of my answers and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kwon, for these information. It's great. Does someone wants to add something to this, or if not, I have one question from one of the participants. Actually, it's from Lise Langlois, so I can go ahead with this question. And
but you have one in the Q&A, Sebastian, from Besma.
Yeah, I know it's been answered already by Mr. Kwon, who saw it. Yeah, yes. But yeah, I can ask it. Maybe other people want to interact with it if you didn't see that question. Yeah, Besma Ben Jem, sorry for the pronunciation again, was thanking all of you for the presentation, and she was asking what are the future direction for Korea's digital identity policies. Professor Kwon answered generously that question. Maybe I don't know. I think I think one of the participants on your side left again. So yeah, I think the question was mainly answered.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, excellent. So. Lise, do you want to ask a question yourself?
Yes,
or
yes, I was wondering what measures has the government put in place to empower citizens in the digital identity process. I was thinking about the senior citizen. You know, sometimes they don't have all the skills to navigate with technology, and I was curious to know about what the government or the civil organization, I don't know, organize these skills around the senior citizen or the other that they don't have it.
Some years yearly, we reformed the regulation about the PKI systems. It was as the mention about the Professor Jang, so presentation has already mentioned it. Korea mandatory regulate using the PKI services, all the nation, all the transaction in public and the banking systems. So naturally, all the Korean internet transactions is ID authentication is from the PKI system as mandatory regulated, but we eliminated the regulations about that. And at the time, after that, Korean people using the private services as an ID service or the authentication and pay services. So, but still we have the PKI system. That is the mainly working infrastructure for the ID. But the other one is that is very important change, I think, is the two-factor authentication from the MNO. The management of network services operators provided, we can make you are the real person that has the eligibility to using this service. They can make another question about how about your mobile phone. We send the code, and you have to put in the code in the services, and okay, you are authenticated. Say. So that is the two factors, and we need the lively working another systems or another factors to identify yourself. So now, maybe now and after that, we can make the standard, or we can make the new services for like this one is multi-factor or the fingerprint like as a biometrics, some kind of new technique. For this one. So I think it is very a good environment in Korea, the national infrastructure to identify someone, the person, people. We have the infrastructure. And the other one is the lively, we can check it is live or not. That is very important thing, I think. So we need, and we can open to the control by the citizens. They can understand using the, another technology or mixed or the new services to their own risk. But the national infrastructure and the policy have to avoid the failure of the using this system or services. That is our direction.
Thank you. I will take the chance to ask a question of my own, really general question. Maybe it won't link to anything pertinent, but I was wondering, how does the geopolitical differences between countries, influence the will or the way that we implement digital identities? It's very general. I don't have a specific goal by asking that question. Maybe it rings some bells for someone. I just drop it there. The difference between countries, maybe as
it is very important, Sebastien. And if you look at Denmark, for instance, I remember in a conference at the end of the 90s, they were surprised by our discussions around developing PKI, because to them it was natural. So it depends on the trust you've built over years with your governments. And it has an impact. And what Sebastien showed about the UK is a good example. Mm-hmm. So of something that is not that well developed in place, and so it's going to be important. Or you can, like Professor Caron said, you can impose it too, and in some countries you can do it. The people will just say that's fine. And this is what we saw in our comparison with South Korea during the pandemic. And what we saw is the civil society was not as vocal as it was in Canada. So the social environment is extremely important.
Because in the global stage, that is very good point and good question. I agree with Daniel. That's very good idea. But we have to make a standardization or the international level, bilateral or trilateral, multilateral. There are so many agreements needed. So it means like as ID is the a kind of regulation And the other one is like as the privacy. Privacy means you understand, you saw that the result of GDPR, that is a barrier of the global stages interactions about the companies' expansion to the European countries, like as Google or the Big Four, big tech. So it is the working like as the barrier to the entering the market, and the ID regulation is I think that it is working like as the GDPR. So we have to make alliance within the free market with the alliance as formerly countries like as Western or democratic or the open economic market or the countries. So it means like as a trust alliance needed in the internet in interactions, the digital market. So we can make or suggest or make it standard for the ID, open ID to the border cross countries, like as between Canada and Korea and the United States or the other countries. Maybe it is the standardization and the other one is the international policies.
Thank you very much for those answers. Is there any more question from the public here? You can raise your hand directly if you want. If not, I think we will bring this event to an end. I really am very thankful. On a personal note, I mean, like I said at the beginning, I'm all new in this position here. And it's a pleasure to hear you all talk about, and especially as well, the researcher on our side that I don't know all that much already. It's very nice to hear all the research that is done on the subject. So thank you very much for your participation and sharing of those these research. I'm sorry. And so I want to take just a moment to thank Besma Benredjmev, who is at the Bureau du Québec à Séoul for the Ministry of Relations Internationales de la Francophonie for our participation in organizing this event here. And I want as well to tell you all that, of course, this event was recorded and we will use all the occasion to disseminate it as much as possible. And so thank you very much again for your participation.
Yes, thank you. Also, thank you, Sébastien, for the coordination, and thank you, Daniel, Sébastien, of course, and Pierre-Martin, and Professor Kwon and Professor Jang. I hope we will continue to collaborate because we appreciate a lot all the information and the scientific literature and the use case that you have it for us. It's really, really important. So thank you. Have a nice day for you. And
thank you very much, Elise. I think we can make a deep conversation about this issue or the other one. It can be hosted in Quebec in your site next spring or the summer. We want to make a further collaboration between two university, two institutions. More than this, there's so many programs that we can make each other to make the exchange program of students or the scholars and or joint project for the research in the international or collaboration between two countries.
Yes.
So I am very honored to participate in this event, and thank you very much for the informative presentations and so wonderful moderation and so hosted. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, and keep in touch. Of course, we will collaborate, and I think the social acceptability, trust, and the different system that we implement, it will be very, very interesting to share with other researchers. So thank you, and have a nice day and nice evening.
And drive safely, Professor Kwon.
Bon nuit, bon nuit.
Merci. Bye-bye.
Merci.
Yeah, bonjour.
Bon matin.